Hey, it's Shabes, and welcome to another edition of AniTube Digest, where we go over the beast and not so beast anime YouTube videos to come out this week, from the 23rd of March to the 29th of March. First for the video that I thought was not good. What's going on at TeamFourStar? I know they're kind of perennials in this particular segment. It's not like I don't know. I'm not like a listener of their podcast because they kind of just talk about like media of like the Marvel movie or something, and I'm just like, I don't care, you know. And yeah, I'm just not like up to date with what's going on with them, what the pandemic's been like for them. They were like, I guess there was they did like a sort of direct with like all the new stuff that they were making and coming out with, and I would have covered that, but I can't see it on their channel. I guess it was just like a instant thing, and then they didn't leave the VOD up or something. I don't know, or maybe I was mistaken, and this was the thing that it actually was. I don't know. So this is called Quality interview, and I think it's like, I don't know, it's some sort of creative outlet for them. Basically, it's some of the guys from their miniseries that I recognize. I know there was cameo from the guy who is in charge of one of the animations they did that I really liked. But there's no Kaiser Neko here. There's no Lanny here that I know of. I don't know. I don't even know if either of them edited this. It doesn't have any credits it has almost nothing in the description. I'm like, what? It's like, it's not very decorate. Like, these guys are fairly professional at this point, and they've been around for a while. So I would have thought that they had like even just links to their social media or something. Like, there's nothing in it was just strange. It's not like a big critique or gotcha of their video. It's just like, that's weird. I wanted to know who edited this because it's certainly kind of interesting. But the weird thing that they're trying to go for that I don't think they quite nail is they're trying to show this slapdash feel and kind of like quality, like kind of ironic quality, I guess. So I guess they're trying to have like kind of sort of shitty camera footage and poor green screening, and like they have like an interview is supposed to be with like Justin Briner, but it's not. They don't have Justin Briner. I guess that was the joke. And they just come off really unprofessional and stuff. So I guess that's kind of the veneer of irony that they're kind of going off here. But like, it really seemed that they're kind of dicking around, and like it didn't have like a direction and just kind of kept going. And there was a segment about like making a sandwich. Okay. Yeah. And here's the thing, right? I know that I wanted to know who edited this because in that sandwich segment, they add in the sound effect of him like scooping the peanut butter, scooping the bread into the peanut butter jar, like they make like that like kind of sound. They edited that in. So there's moments like that where I'm like, okay, you do give a shit, right? And there is it's like you kind of have to either not give a shit or actually give a shit, I think. And you have to have that communicated. And I think it's a little tricky to be under the to go very, very obviously under the guise of quality and like basically ironic, I don't actually give a shit kind of editing. It's hard to fake that. It's hard to not, you know, it's hard to really make that genuine, I think. I don't think they pull it off here, personally. I think Hacker Research Society has a very good kind of veneer of like whatever and wacky and weirdness, but they never address it. They never address it like kind of how they are seeming to here, you know? It wasn't super pandery. It wasn't the worst or whatever. But I couldn't help but feel that, where there's this conflict of like, they can produce really cool stuff and be creative and funny, but like, I guess they're just trying not to be. Okay. It was just strange to me. And like, I don't want to knock any of the guys who work here or who are doing this. It seems that the comments are pretty well received. And I talked about this last time where it's like, I don't get it, but a lot of their fans seem to get it. And I guess it's maybe like, because they're on the podcast, I guess maybe if you're like, if you know them, like I can get kind of like, oh, you know, and you pick up little things like that, and that's fine. But like, I don't know what's going on here. Um, but like, yeah, I don't know. That was just very confusing to me. I don't know if you guys saw that. It's like, what? What? All right, sure. But the other video that I didn't think was very good is another kind of like, what, or what was that? Bless you? No. It's just kind of strange coming from Professor Otaku. I solved modern anime. It's one of his anime editorials, and it's in the same. You know what's funny? I covered Movie Bob on this channel. It was like a compilation of his toku related videos that he assembled, and I had come out at the time, so I decided to cover those. And I like that style, but I could tell that this is, I think that's a lot of what Professor Otaku is taking from. Very bare bones, writing the thing in kind of like, it's just his thoughts, and it's not super lavish in terms of the research or thoroughness or anything like that. It's just kind of like, oh, here's my thoughts kind of deal. As like an editorial, like, I don't know if that's the right definition for it, terminology, but it did. Watching these videos now, I'm like, oh, you know what? Yeah, this does feel a lot like Movie Bob, even with the down to like the visual style of like, the way it's edited. I guess very bare bones as well. I actually took a little bit of notes here, but by the end, I was like, why did I take notes? It's like I really don't know what he's going for here. Basically, he's talking about how certain things can be solved, and the like kind of the I don't even get it. It's to me it sounded like he was coming up with solutions to various genres that are tired at this point to him, and he's basically presenting solutions of like, why don't rom-coms do this? And so it's kind of him making generalizations about all these different genres, and it's like they should do this. But then some of them he doesn't even suggest anything, which he says he's like, oh, I solved them, I have the various solutions, but he doesn't for some of these, like harem shows. He mentions harem shows, and like, I just think they're a lost genre, period, you know, and no mention of how they could fix it. Like, they're kind of a lost cause, I think. I don't know if I'm quoting him exactly, but it feel like he didn't. So it's like, I was like, why did you bring it up then? if you're here presenting as like, hey, this is something I wish more rom-coms did, or something more these other shows did. But like, he kind of gives up on the premise, I guess. Like, I'm looking at it and it's like, what? I wrote down, it was like, oh, he talks about this genre, and what does he say? Just so I can like keep track. And I'm like, oh, he doesn't say. Like, he says for sci-fi and for fantasy, you just have to wait and see. Huh? What? Maybe I'm obviously taking a lot of this out of context, but this was just the stuff that as I was trying to pay attention and like follow what he's saying, I couldn't follow much of it. So it came off very strange. I did appreciate that he mentioned Super Gals by name, but it was just really weird when he was talking about rom-coms and how they don't have any characters that he can attach himself onto, and they're just dry whatever and tired whatever. But then he's showing you pictures of Origairu and Kaguya-sama without addressing them. So it's like, these are the ones he's talking about when he's saying these generalizations about rom-coms. But he talks as if it's like, are you just saying that because you see the poster of Kaguya-sama and you're like, I don't think I'll like that. I bet those are tired. Like, I don't know if you've seen it, right? Granted, I haven't seen it, but there's no indication of or any details, not even saying the show's name. So that's why I was like, okay, he's actually going to mention Super Gals. And the element he liked about that show is that it had a very specific niche and an idea behind it, and it's exploring like kind of a time capsule portion of, you know, the early 2000s with gal culture and stuff, and that's kind of what makes that one interesting. And I totally get that if you just want to have something kind of like a hook specifically, but it feels very dismissive overall, and it was very dismissive of like idol shows. I was like, have you really seen any? I mean, the most idol I've seen is like Macross. But I haven't seen an outright full idol show yet myself, so I'm not going to go out of my way to like talk about them. But like you meant, I think you like show the picture of like Love Live or Idolmaster or something. I don't actually know if you've seen it. And he's like, "Oh, I've pretty much solved them. The solution is VTubers." So like the appeal of the idol show that needs to be successful, just watch VTubers. Okay. And it also that one also came from a perspective. It sounded like you're talking about it at a distance. Like, do you watch VTubers yourself? You know what I mean? Or are you just kind of observing them and like, oh, I get that. I understand what's going on. I'm smart. I know what's going on here, without actually like participating in it and giving some details and stuff. I couldn't find a real way to describe it, but I wrote that it sounds like TV tropes poisoned. You know, if people are like, I know the hero's journey and thousand. He references that in the video, in touting all that and stuff, and like in talking about the tropes of the whatever, and it's like, it seems kind of, it just seems, I don't personally subscribe to this line of thinking, I guess. I don't, because what the result ends up being is that you're not really talking in specifics. You're talking very generally, and it's like, what is there to, what was the point? What's the understanding I'm supposed to take away here? That was the vibe I was getting overall, and it just kind of lost me a lot, multiple times. He was saying that anime all feels the same. He's trying to get that, because a lot of people do feel that way, and so they're trying to find reason for it. And the two reasons he has is there's more of it, but they did. I listened to this multiple times, so I made sure I wrote this specifically. But they don't have enough of a creator pool to draw in, and I think there's more to that sentence. But like even that part, I'm like, okay, what are you talking about? They don't have enough of a creator pool to draw in. Maybe I should. Maybe that's being disingenuous. But even that point is just like creator pool. What? I don't know. It was weird, and then the other reason was anime releases are filtered. And he's saying that back then, in the United States, when they were licensing shows, we would only get the good ones. Sometimes they were stinkers, but we would never get all of the anime. So now that we do, we get all, and we see how much there is, and it's like, oh, you know, and that's why it all feels the same. So are you trying to make the argument that anything that was not licensed in the 90s and 2000s that are 80s, 90s, 2000s titles are not worth licensing to begin with? That's really dumb. I don't agree with that whatsoever. It's because they won't sell, because there's a mass market that, like, that's just because Kiss X Sis is a very profitable title and we'll license it because we know it's a profitable title, and turns out it is. That doesn't mean it's a good and I don't want to be like messing with like, oh, good, bad quality. You can make any judgment of quality you want. Princess Tutu's a great show. To my knowledge, I don't think it's ever had a very good, successful like license. Like it's not that popular of a title. No matter how good these titles are, it's not a barrier of quality. It's like success and quality are not the same thing. You know what I mean? So just because Goldfish Warning or these other anime that never got licensed, Ashita no Joe, never really got brought over to the United States, or fucking think about Hajime, in the 2000s, Genion released Hajime no Ippo, dubbed it bombed. And now Discotek brought it back after 10 or 15 years when fans have discovered it, and a lot of people like Ippo a lot because it turns out it's a good show. Now that we brought it out, it's actually popular. It's actually selling really well for Discotek. Who would have thunk? These things can change and they shift, and that was just a really, really bad argument for me of just like, oh, just because we're seeing it and it was filtered in the 2000s, that's why it's anime these days are not as good. What? That was really weird. Yeah, I guess I went off on that one more than I thought I would. But yeah, come on, what the heck was that? it was just confusing and like, I don't know, not additive in my opinion. Okay, now for some videos that I thought were decent. They're pretty good. And the first one I want to talk about is someone who sent me a video this week on their relatively new channel, channel named Syntaste, talking about Higurashi When They Cry live action versus anime. And they're only comparing the anime and the first movie and the manga. And this is a very like nitty gritty plot beat by plot beat comparison difference. And I think it ends up being kind of chaotic in that way and difficult to follow. For someone like me who has not seen any Higurashi at all yet. But yeah, there's a lot of various things. I'm not totally sure if Syntaste needed to include comparisons to the manga. I feel like that if you have it on the title, it's like live action versus the live action movie versus the anime. That's it, right? That should be all fine. But also, it seemed like Syntaste was kind of alternating very randomly between the brand new Higurashi that came out this past season, or very, very recently, versus the 2006 Higurashi, like the original anime. It felt like those two anime were like interchangeable, and they're not the same production. Like, I haven't seen either of them, of course, but like, that was weird. I mean, I did hear about how this new Higurashi has kind of a twist. It's sort of adapting a different piece of it, and people were not expecting that or something. I don't want to get into specifics or anything because like spoilers, but also I have no idea. But I've heard it's different. So that was kind of weird that Syntaste was kind of mixing the two of them together seemingly interchangeably. It wasn't as specific. It was like the 2006 anime and this live action movie. Otherwise, I think there's a nice mixture of objective differences versus fun things that Syntaste noticed of like, oh, what is with the eye? They didn't show up this one time, and why is it back now? And yeah, he has this whole conspiratorial sort of tone to it. Kind of some humor to this as well. I thought that was nice. Kind of mixing it up instead of being a very robotic comparison. I thought this was not a bad way to go about comparing the two, and I can't completely knock it either because this is essentially how I did my Megalobox video with comparing it to Ashino Joe, going very beat by beat. They had like, I'm not gonna excuse it. I'm like, what I did, but like I get that there's a utility to that. I feel like if you talk more holistically about the differences, maybe about the tone or something like that. I actually really liked Bess Onizaki's video on Higurashi, where she compares all of the adaptations of like, but she goes one section at a time. So it's a chunk of just talking about the live action in comparison to the visual novel or something. And she's talking more holistically about it. I feel like that would have been easier to follow even for non audience member people who haven't seen Higurashi. I think that would have made it easier to follow. But I think it seemed very thorough, and I like the lightheartedness kind of mixed in there in the commentary and things. I thought it was a good video. It was interesting. Mudan, not Mudan TV. It's his second channel that I don't think he ever let any of us know that I know of. It seems to be his channel for Twitch. Like he's doing a lot of Twitch nowadays, and so this is sort of like a highlights channel. So this one is about failing to replicate basic anime recipes. And I think he has a really good presence on stream in terms of like kind of like live action stuff and talking off the cuff. Whereas his other, even like some of his unscripted videos in the past were very like, they seemed very formal in a way. I like how down to earth he was here. I think he has a good presence. I like that, he was very transparent about like, oh, I didn't buy this other thing for this food or whatever. Yeah, and I thought it was a comfy watch. It felt similar to kind of like, if it was a stream highlights thing where I think with Twitch, for me at least, I'm not mainly on Twitch very much. I am on it occasionally, but to me it's always like something you kind of put on in the background, like the radio or something, where, so you're occasionally checking in on it and kind of paying attention to it. But it's something that's constantly going and like, you're only passively interacting with it. So I think this was sort of like a bite-sized version of that feeling, I guess. So it's sort of a nice, comfy thing. Yeah, I think it was really fun. I just wanted to kind of talk about it as it's something that, I haven't talked about this particular channel with Mudan. But he's a lot more active on this one, obviously, because Twitch is a lot easier to kind of just do. And then I guess someone else edits these videos, which is interesting. It's cool that Mudan now has an editor. that's great. I was like, man, he grew up. Not like if those of us who do edit our own videos still don't grow up or whatever. But it's it's more like, oh yeah, okay, you're cool. You got like an editor. Ooh, I don't know. There's something like that. That's kind of fun. Yeah, but I liked it. It was cool. So I wasn't going to check out this video from Aleczandxr at first because it's Attack on Titan. I'm not caught up with the 4th season yet. I want it to be anime only. And the minute I heard that it was 16 episodes, I was like, well, I'm holding off. Hold on a sec. Because there's no way they were going to adapt all of that. And it turns out they didn't. And everyone has to wait for next winter. But Aleczandxr puts out this video, and he tweeted it out again, being like, "This is kind of different and something kind of interesting. I think it's different from my other content. I want you to check it out. Not to me or anything, but just to Twitter in general. Of like, hey guys." So I was like, okay, sure. So this is about the Chains of Helos, who's a character that's a mythological figure in Attack on Titan that isn't just pretty much just the 4th season. That had not been mentioned at all up till now. And, this doesn't seem to have that much in the way of spoilers. It didn't feel that way. It didn't feel like you were spoiling these major... Like, I was spoiled to a certain death that happens in Season 4 just from Twitter and everything. And it didn't feel like Aleczandxr really went out of his way to spoil any of those without any reason. I think this was a really cool video because not once does he say the words Attack on Titan, like the title of the show, or talk metatextually at all. He kind of just was like, there once was this hero named Halos that was, and he just kind of immediately dives into it and doesn't talk metatextually or mentions the author or mentions that it's a manga or an anime or something. He's just talking about it as a story. And that was a really refreshing way of talking about anime in this way. I'm not the most into this kind of content these days, unless it's like anime I care about. Just because I always feel myself kind of like zoning out personally. And there was moments in this where I was zoning out, but I was really riveted specifically by that narrative device of being able to talk about Halos and how the idea applies to many of the characters in the series and how they see themselves as a Helos, as a hero, pretty much. Heros, I guess, is the Japanese, and then like Hiro, Heros, I don't know, whatever. I thought that was kind of an interesting little parallel, I guess. And how like everyone sees themselves as a hero and doing certain things, but they're considered demons to others. So similar to how like Halos is a hero and martyr for, I don't know if he's a martyr exactly, I haven't seen it, but he's a hero for the Marlians, but because he's killing Eldians, it's like obviously he's the bad guy for Eldians. And similar to how people kind of see themselves as someone to take up his mantle, but they're considered demons to other people around them. Everyone is kind of acting in that way, and the chains, I believe, is how like it's all kind of eating each other up, like this heroism that everyone's kind of taking as a righteous stand or whatever. It's just kind of, there's no peace, basically. It's constant conflict. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if that was correct or anything, but like that was really cool. I really liked that, the way that Aleczandxr really was able to present that. It wasn't very, it didn't feel like typical anime analysis. Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. Nice job. I'm going to check out a Megalobox video, especially one from We Heart Giant Robots. And it's called The Sweet Science because it's talking about, because the sweet science in particular is the technicalities that come with boxing and like being able to read your opponent, the maneuvers you have. It's not just people hitting each other basically. And there's a portion of this where they really appreciate that, and they kind of tout a little of their own knowledge about certain boxers and certain other fights, and connecting that to Megalobox and how they saw, the appeal and enjoyment of real boxing in a show like Megalobox, which is a frame of mind that I've not seen for people talking about Megalobox, because the only thing I've seen is how people kind of complain about how unrealistic it is, or it's not about boxing or whatever. I won't name names. There's certain people I could, but like critics of Megalobox that I've heard, they specifically cite that it's not really real boxing kind of deal. But I think the We Heart Giant Robots did a really good job here. If you guys don't know them, they're this duo, and they seem to be kind of in like a Discord call, and they're just kind of talking with each other with a banter. And this is just like an edited but pretty long conversation review, and they go over like the production staff, which not into too detail, because they just kind of list the names. They're like, I don't know what this guy did. Oh well, moving on. They just kind of name names. I felt that one was not the most substantive section, and they probably could have just not have it if you're not really gonna go much into it, in my opinion. But talking about it substantially, and in terms of praising in certain areas, I like the shout out to the voice actor for Aragaki, and how they appreciated that performance. Noticing a lot of details, talking about negatives as well, which they don't seem to have very many, so that was nice for me to hear. I was like, yes, I don't like hearing slander of Megalobox. I really like Megalobox, I guess. I'm just very defensive, I guess. Looking forward to season 2 in a couple days, and can't wait to wreck me. Yeah, and that was kind of the reason they brought this video out, was in anticipation of season 2 kind of deal. So that was a nice video. It was pretty cool. I liked it. I did watch PhenomSage's video on It's Okay to Like Unlikable Characters in Mushoku Tensei. And, it's hard. I don't know. There's something with PhenomSage. There's not like a particular aspect I can always grasp when it comes to their visual, their editing, or style or anything. There's nothing that stands out to me. So it always has to come down to the content and like, what are they saying? And so I liked the thing I actually liked with this is kind of a subject that's a little bit tired already for me. I feel like a lot of people who have to talk about Mushoku Tensei have to address the main character being kind of a lecherous pervert, who is also over 30 years old in the body of a young boy. And a lot of people have problems with whatever. And to me, it's like, yeah, I mean, y'all probably haven't seen Ashita no Joe, which has an incredibly unlikable main character. And you do wonder that dynamic of like, why is he still compelling to me? Why is it still not a deal breaker, even though he does all these problematic things? And it's PhenomSage kind of wrestling over that personally. And I really like that he lands towards the last third of the video talking about this idea of a line, this imaginary line that a show would cross if it goes too far with a unlikable character, with content that he doesn't necessarily like. And so he has his own parameters, and I like that he very much specifies this is what that line is to me, and it's different for everybody. And here's an example of a scene that did cross over, that I was like, here are the questions I asked myself when this scene happened, and how did I feel about that? And it wasn't like a end of the world kind of thing. I don't know. I think it was a good handling of this particular subject, and I like that he kind of hyper focused on it instead of just talking about Mushoku Tensei. Period. A lot of people seem to be just doing general reviews of it. But would it be? Yeah. So I thought I really liked that ending part with the and again the substantive part with the line and stuff, and being very clear that it's completely subjective and people can have their own standards and lines and stuff. I think the thing that I was missing is just kind of like he glosses over very quickly how there have been other lecherous characters in anime. But here's the thing: the characters that he mentions is Grape Kid in Hero Academia and Sanji. Both of those aren't the main character, right? And so like people can be like, oh, they only show up a little bit. They're on their own, they're not the main character. If the main character is unlikable, how does that struggle happen? Like it's like, how do you wrestle with that basically? I don't remember if PhenomSage is the one that mentioned Ataru in Urusei Yatsura. I think he was. I think he did mention that here. Or it may have been somebody else mentioned in one of the other videos. I don't remember. But there's definitely other examples, I think. I think if you leaned on other kind of like citing other things, and maybe that would be considered a straw man, and I know you kind of addressed that in this video, that you're not trying to straw man. But I think you can better get a better understanding of it. Another thing I think you said was the more nuance we bring in the conversations we have. I might be putting words in your mouth. I'm sorry, because like I have very similar thoughts about like we just need to have discussions and substantive conversations about these subjects. Otherwise, they're not going to go anywhere, and these conflicts are still going to exist. The more nuance we bring to the more details and talking about specific scenes and how it made each person feel, the more we'll be able to really get around to it and think about and get it. I don't know. I think you just kind of get, it's like, all right, I have an understanding of my opinion of this, instead of like, no, bad, show bad. You know what I mean? And the thing is, right, this show is not going away. This is like a completed story. And the production's been in planning for years. It's not, and it's a success with some fans. I think it's divisive right now. And in terms of the community, it seems pretty down the middle. But I think a lot of the non-fans are kind of wrestling with the fact that like this is going to be kind of a subject of conversation for people for the next couple of years. It's like saying, you don't watch Sword Art Online or whatever. And not like, I think the Sword Art Online ended up getting to a point where a lot of people were like, yeah, I'm good. And then the people who liked it were just kind of on their own and whatever. And you leave those fans alone, they're able to enjoy it. And that's cool. I would just hope, yeah. I don't know. It's a weird conversation. And I like that Phenom also kind of was talking about like, what if he never gets better? And that's the thing, right? That like, I feel like that's a character trait that's going to just be prevalent. And I will recommend Kim Morrissey, Frog Kun, on Anime News Network, wrote an article about Mushoku Tensei and where it got, basically its backstory, its history of the original story, and why it's not necessarily the progenitor of isekai novels the way everyone else has been kind of proclaiming, but rather talking about its influences and how it was written. And the kind of the interesting thing that I would hope gets more traction, that more people understand, is the idea that the author was writing it with getting the reception of fans. And this happens with any story, of course, that's ongoing, like One Piece or Attack on Titan, whatever. But Kim makes the assertion that the author actually steered the story based on what the audience liked or didn't like. So if there's developments in the story, the author would keep going. But if there was stuff that wasn't, so it's like, okay, fans don't seem to like when I do the pervy stuff. I'll stop that. Maybe, so there's, I don't know. I think there's more interesting nuance and detail to kind of be figured out there. I don't know if that actually happens. If there's actually a point where the author was like, oh, maybe that went too far, I'm not going to do that again. Or something like that. It feels like there's a metatextual narrative there that's interesting. It shouldn't be necessary to enjoy the show. But yeah, something that is like, okay, I don't know. I feel like I have way more to say about this than usual for some reason. I don't know. I'm steering away from it because I don't want to be strung along waiting for more of it for a decade. like a lot of these other shows that I'm at right now. So I'm not checking it out until most of it gets done, or if not all of it, you know. I got other stuff I can watch that's like complete. That's my perspective on it, and I've told that 1,000 times to other people. Anyway, good videos, PhenomSage. I liked it. And now we're going to talk about what I thought were the best videos of the week. One of those I was like, yeah. I was very happy with them. And the first one is actually from Chang. I covered one of his Pippi video for request, and put out a video called Getting into the Anime Industry, a primer. So Chang actually works in the anime industry, and he was like, yep, here are my credentials. I've worked on these shows. I've done key animation for all this. And he talked about his experience of getting into how he got into the anime industry. And it's like, oh, I grew up here. I applied here. This was my trajectory, basically. And gives out a layout of things you will need if you want to take this particular route of becoming an animator or this particular route. I really liked how general this was and trying to cast a wide net without trying to go too deep into the specifics, because it's just a primer, as it says there. I feel like this could be like an hour-long video really talking about specific things. But there's a lot of nuance here, so I think it was a lot of like, you might get this. This might happen. And he was taking from his own personal experience of like, oh, there was one interview I had where everyone was in the room, and that was weird. Or I came in with a t-shirt and shorts, and everyone else was dressed nicely, or you know, little personal stories like that were really cool too. Visual wise, it's very clean. It's just kind of his face with some audio bars and stuff, but then like showing certain things that are necessary. I really like that he showed his short film off, and he's like, this could be a really good way to get into it. And I learned under this guy, and you know, learning from an anime industry and an animator's perspective, I think is really valuable. So that's really great. I thought there was a lot of valuable, interesting information here. I think you should check it out. Even if you're not like interested, I don't want to be in the anime industry or anything like that. I think if you have more understanding of it, the more understanding you have of it. You know, like, oh, okay, I'm not going to make assumptions. Yeah, I like it. It was a really, really good video. Very informative. So Ygg Studio put out 2 videos this week, and I'm only covering the K-On! One. Sorry. The other one is a video. I'm sorry that happened. That I feel like that situation shouldn't. That was just disappointing to see for everyone involved. I don't like conflict personally. So I mean, if things had to be settled and stuff, yeah, I guess I said I wasn't going to address it. Now I am, so whatever. I guess it's sort of like a big. I feel like it's an elephant in the room if people know about it, but that's what's going on. I'm not even going to talk about it very much. If you want to watch that video, it's on her channel, of course. But Trixie talked about K-On! Again, and this does seem to sort of be an evolution of her content. I think I read a blog from her talking about how, like, you know, I was able to coalesce all of my thoughts about K-On! In a more coherent manner. Because like the Loving Thesis, I haven't actually listened to all of Loving Thesis, but Loving Thesis is very personal, based on Trixie's experiences. And I'm sorry. Yeah, but I liked in the blog post, she was talking about rapper versus MC content. Rapper talking mostly about themselves and their personal experience with a rapper type content. So it's like a lot of and like their personal experience with something and personal descriptors. Whereas an MC is someone that's kind of telling a narrative and a story that's separate from them, and they're isolated from the content. There might be a little bit here and there, but largely it's just a storyteller type of thing. And I resonated with that because like I feel like, you know, unintentionally I was making a lot of videos that have nothing to do with myself. It is stemming from my observations and things that I care about, but it's stuff that I'm not really bringing myself into it as much with pretty much most of my content. Whereas I was realizing that, like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people just like my videos isolated, but they don't necessarily like they enjoy my content, so obviously they like me kind of deal in a way, but there's no personal attachment in that way. They just feel like just videos, right? And I think that a lot of there is that distinct difference of, oh, I'm watching Ygg Studio because it's Trixie, right? Whereas what's it? I think Stevem. Well, I watch Steven for the Steven because they're Steven videos, but by and large, I'm watching them because I know they have really great information and presented really, really well. And it's not so much of Stevem's person in the video, even though he films himself a little bit these days. It's an interesting dynamic. And so Trixie was talking about how separating herself from it and just presenting K-On! And why it's becoming has garnered such a following and stuff. And it does seem very concise, very polished. It doesn't make any real grand claims besides like the anime community loves, or certain. I think the results do speak for themselves. I think it's sort of like secondhand information of like, yeah, it is well regarded now, and people do consider it a classic. And the hate boner people have for K-On! Has largely dissipated, has gone down, if you will. Yeah, a lot of people kind of recognize its quality and stuff, and it's above average for this kind of show. And I like that Trixie also said that like I never once argued that this was a show for everybody. Very good point. I really like that. But it's like for the thing that it is trying to do, it is stellar. It is a stellar craft, and I agree as someone who has finally actually watched K-On! A year ago or 2 years ago at this point. I don't remember. That was good. I actually liked the first season more, as it was focusing more on the music. Not like the music's not the point kind of deal. I feel like the second season felt a little more stretched out, and the emotional dramatic core that I was expecting, that people were saying was there, it felt similar. It just felt kind of the same, but the first season just felt like more pure fun, at least to me. That's just my mini review of K-On!, I guess. But yeah, I'm only really talking about this one. I'm glad that this was very polished, and it does seem that like Trixie is more focused on making very high quality anime. Not like she wasn't before, right? But like it's not as instant. It's not as like quick and everything. And also it's one of several things that she's doing. Best of luck with the moving out with the crew into the trailer. That is really cool, and hopefully go all over the country, kind of like all gas no brakes kind of deal. Rest in peace. Yeah, pretty cool video. I really liked it. It was really well polished and well done. Nice video from Craftsdwarf about time paradox ghostwriter. And yeah, I guess it's just a short story and everything, but I like that Craftsdwarf was able to kind of expand on its on ideas and address the community, people complaining about it being plagiarism and like, oh, it's endorsing it. It's like, look, people do bad things in fiction, and then they can improve it. I don't know. Yeah, I liked a lot of the metatextual elements that Craftsdwarf brought here, talking about how like other authors are aware of they talk very openly about their influences. Like JJK talks very openly of how inspired they were by Bleach, and then you have this interview with him and Kubo. Like it's like Kubo's like, yeah, I noticed. It's like it's not like they're oblivious to their influences, and it's not like if taking from other things is altogether a bad thing. And also talking about like how Jump suddenly got a influx of anthropomorphic stories because of the success of Beastars. Things like that are really interesting bits. But I like that he was able to kind of summarize the core theme and dramatic thrust, I don't know, of this story with the main girl like writing for an audience versus writing for herself. And I think it's interesting with kind of extending it to art in general, the push and pull of making art for yourself versus making art for the masses and the people. And at least with Ghostwriter, it seems like kind of the the message is like, if you write just for the audience, you'll kill yourself pretty much. You'll overwork trying to give the expectations to people, and it's gonna break you basically. So yeah, I think it was a really good holistic video on Ghostwriter, probably the definitive video in this case with such a short story and stuff. Maybe there's more elaborate you could possibly go with, but I think Craftsdwarf pretty much hits the nail on the head with this one. And generally, his content's awesome, man. I was watching it, I was like, man, he's got it nailed down. That's great job. Jackisboy is finally back with the problem with Jaden animations, Rule 34. It doesn't really show anything crazy, and it is in typical Jackisboy fashion with a lot of skits and over-the-top reactions, and putting himself into uncomfortable situations. In this case, I don't know how much of it was staged. I was sort of wondering if I was like, oh, that is very interesting that all three of them just hung up on you. I guess not the first one didn't, but like the last two people he interviews. So like he's like, I got to get to the bottom of this, and he messages 30 people that have drawn Jaden porn, and only a couple of them actually respond to him. And he has Discord calls and he records it, and it's just really awkward and not very productive. That was very amusing. And it's one of the things that only Jackisboy is really able to do. I think a lot of us have a lot more dignity. No, I'm sorry. Not that so much, but like personal ego, right? I think as like YouTubers, all of us are here in such a way that like, you know, we're trying to like put ourselves out there. And so putting ourselves out there in uncomfortable situations, there was only so many of us that are comfortable with that, right? Like I would never, right? I was doing interviews for my video that I'm working on right now, and I did not want to make it audio. I was like, you can send it to me we can just talk in the chat. I'll just send you the questions and you type whatever, please. And didn't need him to record anything, and make it as hassle-free as possible. And so that's me very much avoiding that sort of thing that Jackisboy is embracing, actually. And it's funny. It's really it's really different and fun. I think there was a lot more live action footage of him in this video than there are in his previous videos, it seemed. There's a lot of montages and him talking in front of the camera like this. And I really liked the skit at the end he has with Outcast Ray voicing Jaden, and he has this whole narrative of him trying to find his brother, and he links the Applejack Cinnamon guy into this. The guy sent me a link, and I've been listening 1,000 times. He's so funny, dude. And really creative. There's a like a burst of like kind of manic editing towards the end here. It really shows that like he's really talented with video editing. It's not simply like, there are stretches of this video that are very similar to other YouTubers where very clearly you didn't know what to put here, so you Googled family terrified or something. You just Googled this image and it's nothing but like the stock images and all of the line. And then it's probably intentional at this point where you're actually choosing these. It's like, it's got the watermark, great. And there's still stretches of that, but when it really starts moving and there's a lot of multiple images and stuff, it really ramps up and it's really entertaining. It was really cool, and it was good to see you kind of unlodge yourself from a creative rut, and now you're back in it. I imagine it's like, well, that was it. Great. Back in it with like creator's block kind of deal. And I'm certainly there. With my content. I feel kind of angsty about mine personally, of just like, what do I talk about? You know? Yeah, it was a really good video. Nice job. I did catch this before I recorded. Hayden Loves Anime talked about an introduction to Game Center CX, which I've seen this guy before, and not just from Hayden showing me clips of it, but I've seen people use this guy as a profile picture and stuff for other things on Twitter or whatever. But I was never aware of this show specifically. And I really liked it. This video and the Game Center was really great. And I really liked that Hayden linked episodes to check out at the end, or at least referenced them, I guess. That was awesome. And yeah, I thought it was really positively oriented. I was really happy with the message here of like, not totally putting down the AVGN clones of negativity critic and everything, but also strongly embracing this idea of positivity and frustration with playing a game and kind of like making positive, wholesome, additive content and funny content. He seems like a really wholesome guy, a way more wholesome than I was kind of expecting from him. Out of the kind of the images I've seen, a lot of people don't have that same outlook as he does, as the actual person. The people that use that profile picture, like one or two people I'm aware of, and that's always colored my impressions of him. But this was excellent. I do want to check out some of those ones. I was surprised with the Tokimeki Memorial video. It was kind of cool. This was just a wholesome video from Hayden. Hayden also doesn't show up the same way in these videos the way he has in previous videos. And I thought that was also not like a good thing, like, good, don't show yourself. Not like that, but like, it was an interesting observation. Like, Hayden was able to make something like this that was largely reliant on this content. I like the commercials you added, and your reason behind them being like, it's really it's historical, to check out the culture and the media that they were surrounded by at this particular time, because we can always have like impressions of the 80s and whatever, but it's like, no, let's actually concretely look at some of these. And I really liked those commercials you added specifically, and the tone of this video in general, which is indicative of the rest of your content I've complimented before, of course. I couldn't miss out on this one. Hayden has definitely turned into a content creator that I don't want to miss any uploads for. I don't know. I'm still not going to guarantee that every video is going to go on Digest. But he was really turned into one. I was like, yeah, I got to watch a video from him, because it was really great. I really liked it. I will say, though, the best video this week, it was hard to pick. A lot of them were really great. I decided to go with Super Eyepatch Wolf's video on the bizarre world of fake psychics, because he took this. It's obviously like budding off of his very successful world of fake martial arts, except this one was a lot more serious, a lot more informative. Because I was wondering going into this of like, how is he going to differentiate this video from why does he justify this video's existence versus the other stuff, right? Versus his fighting video. It just feels like a carbon copy. But he really goes in hard talking about the really damaging consequences of this practice, which is not based on any scientific, and it still has never been based on any scientific thing. I really liked, it's similar to his wrestling videos. He really embraces and it gives you this narrative of this rich this very famous psychic versus this magician who became kind of the psychic hitman, disproving a bunch of people, a bunch of psychics, and kind of going out of his way to do that. It was really interesting. That narrative was great, but then it was really that last third really bringing the hammer down on how terrible these guys can be in terms of like people's missing children, like, predicting where missing children are and being turned out wrong. And a lot of like, it's not like illegal. It wasn't any illegal activity that he talked about, but it's morally reprehensible. And they should feel shamed for, like, modern day. This is still a thing. The real shocker to me was that it's not like a ho-ho kooky thing. It was still happening. It was persistent. It felt, he really sold this as something malicious, and really keep addressing it as like, if it's not hurting people, no, it is hurting people. And it's like, if you are participating in this, you're doing, and it's like, you might be like, oh, bad apples. No, it's all not based on this, and he's really going hard on him. I really liked the tastefulness of not going after anybody who had a smaller platform than him, specifically the emergence of how many people are obviously going to do this on Facebook and TikTok. Of course. It made complete sense when he said that. I was like, oh, of course it's going to move to that play. That's where everyone is. And it makes way more viral. And he doesn't go after anyone specifically because he doesn't like punching down, which is a good idea. But so I think that was also on Twitch. But he's like, realize I am watching you, and he was making a threat here of like, hey, there is plenty of material here for a sequel, which is something that's very unusual for him as well. He's very similar to a lot of us content creators, where if we make a subject on a video, we might make a sequel like this of an adjacent topic, but we're never going to make a straight up sequel, right? And there's not really going to be like a part 2 to this. Yeah, that was really something else. And it really felt like he cared a lot, did his research, really went hard on these, and like not giving him an inch, and also going out of his way to be kind of like, hey, this I wasn't going to talk about this aspect of psychics because YouTubers were very infamously not giving them fair shake, and he's like, here's a little bit of a fair shake, and he's like, oh, it kills people, and then he kind of gives another kind of like, hey, listen, you're not messing with this. With this smaller creator got her video taken down because she denounced this particular thing, and somebody struck her about it, tried to falsely take down her video, and so he's like, I'm noticing that. Now you're dealing with me. And that was bold of him. I'd be terrified of doing so. I don't like conflict. I hate conflict. But that was really brave of him to do that. In like the middle of the video. There was a number of really substantially impressive things he did here, on top of delivering a very compelling video, as compelling as his fake martial arts video. But he managed to find an avenue that was more impactful, and best of luck in terms of the reception and reaction of this video. This is definitely something that can rustle people's feathers, I think. So like this is a very brave and crazy video. So really good. I respect the shit out of it. So yeah, that was my considered best of the week. And that'll do it for this installment of AniTube Digest. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you to my patrons, including Austin, Boo, Kuiper, MyAnimePod, Najbeb, Nicholas, Saxon, Unique Namosaurus, Victor, and Yellow Cheese. You guys are great. You have a great week. Yo, peace.